So appreciate y'all joining us to kind of discuss the 8 hidden traps that sabotage your job search. We're really glad to have you here. I think the act of searching for a job is something that we have all done at various points in our lives, but you're definitely not alone in your desire to find a career that you love at this particular moment in time. I think that, as most of you are aware of, the job market out there is pretty tumultuous. Unemployment remains at a relatively low figure, but in certain sectors of the industry, there have been massive amounts of layoffs. And there has been a lot of just emotional and workplace stress and trauma that has happened as a result of the post-COVID workplace environment. Right. And I think that a lot of those dynamics are really kind of casting into sharp relief the need for just a better and more engaging work situation that provides people the opportunity to better balance their financial objectives, their personal growth and development objectives, and their own mental health and relationships. And so what we want to share with you here today is, for those of you who are ready to make the next steps in your career, how do you go about doing that and setting yourself up for success, not just across the professional dimension, but across all of those dimensions? So before we get into the content, I want to introduce myself and my co-host and why we're doing this. So my name's Scott Arrieta. I'm the CEO of Unity & Company. We're a consulting firm that focuses on leveraging a strategic understanding of human experiences to unlock best-in-class business performance. I think too often organizations start with the performance objectives that they want to see, and the thought of cultivating and developing their people and understanding the human experience component of that can be kind of an afterthought, or at least a secondary consideration. And what we at Unity believe is that's actually reversed. We believe that human beings should be central to the calculus. An understanding of human experiences should be central to our strategies and processes, because at the end of the day, the customers who pay us, the employees who serve those customers, and the leaders who develop those employees are all people. And we all have experiences that need to be taken into consideration. Tiffany, welcome. It's good to see your face. All right, so a little bit about me. I have a 20-year career in HR, operations, and customer experience. That's the bullet point. The thing I want to share with you all is I have a very unconventional career path. I dropped out of college twice, thought I was going to go into a medical field, and started out in financial services without a college education. Fast forward 20 years, I was able to finish up my undergrad, get an MBA at a well-thought-of business school, and really climb my way up the corporate ladder to executive positions in HR and operations. And because of the twists and turns that my career has taken, I feel uniquely qualified to share with you all some of the experiences and perspectives that I have accrued as a result of making my own mistakes, but also being an organizational leader who has been responsible for hiring thousands of people and assessing tens of thousands of applications at scale. So I want to show you a little bit of the tips and the tricks that I've picked up along the way. That's me. Skylar, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Skylar Lewandowski. You can read the bullet points, obviously, but as Scott said, I similarly have had just kind of a crazy career path in the sense that I've done different jobs at different companies. I've switched to different industries, and at each job, I've actually taken another job internally. So I think these tips we'll share with you today are not only just switching careers to a different company, but also if you want to switch careers within your own company, how to do that as well. So we're excited to share the tips with you, and I'll be on chat. So any questions you have, just let me know there.
I'll plug Workplace Therapy. Skylar and I host a podcast called Workplace Therapy. It's all about workplace trauma and how we can engage with that, do the work of healing together, and for the organization leaders in the audience, do a better job of serving the people that we're responsible for. Go ahead and take a listen if you're interested. We don't get compensated if you do, but it's resonated with a lot of people because I think what we found is there aren't a lot of forums to talk about the trauma that we all experience in the workplace, but we all experience trauma in the workplace. And so we've gotten really good feedback from our growing listener base there. We'd love it if you check it out. All right, let's get to the good stuff. Here's the agenda. We started with an introduction. We're going to talk a little bit about how we work. The thing that really kind of makes this program and our perspective unique from a lot of the stuff that already exists on Google or ChatGPT is we believe that in order to be truly successful at finding a career that you love, you don't just need the tactics. The tactics are everywhere. We have a series of tactics of our own, right, that are helpful, but we also go a couple of steps deeper. So we believe that you need to start with your mindset. What is your perception and vision of yourself? And what are you bringing to the table? What are your motivations for seeking the next role? And then we go to strategy, which is given that you now have full clarity and vision of yourself and what it is that you want, how do you go about assessing the opportunities or creating the opportunities in front of you to go ahead and bring that vision to life? And then the third piece is the tactics. Like, how do you maximize the chances of actually getting through the gauntlet that is the interview and application process and landing a seat at the table and getting on the payroll? So that's kind of our secret sauce. And so we'd love to start with the mindset piece. All right, so here's our first hidden trap in the mindset category. First hidden trap is not being clear on what's important to you right now, right? I think a lot of times when we find ourselves looking for a job, we are overcome with the feeling of urgency, and that hinders us from being able to think clearly about what it is that we actually want. So, couple of key concepts here. Priorities. What are your priorities for this new role? And I think this is something where people have a general sense of what their priorities are, but people are over-indexed on two priorities above and beyond everything else, which is your title and your compensation, right? And if you index solely, or if you index too hard on just those two attributes, what you'll find is that if other things are out of whack, you might think that you're able to tolerate a certain amount of toxicity or a certain amount of lack of resonance with your own working style for a certain amount of money. But over time, the truth is that really wears on you. A lot of times, the more intrinsic qualities of a job are a lot more important and deterministic of your success or failure than the more extrinsic aspects like your title and your compensation. It's also important to discuss here that your priorities can shift over time, right? When, for a lot of people, typically when they're earlier in their careers and they have fewer familial obligations, they're able to invest a lot more time. Work-life balance isn't as important to them because it's relatively easy to balance work and life. And so you might index strategically on title, scope of work, and compensation during that phase of your life. But then you progress to kind of the middle stage of your life, and maybe you have a partner now, maybe you have kids, maybe you have family commitments, maybe you're a caregiver for somebody close to you. And in those situations, you might prioritize work-life balance a little bit more heavily than you would in a different chapter of your life. So what we want to say here is be clear on your priorities and be graceful to yourself if right now your priorities have shifted relative to earlier in your career historically. Having this level of clarity is really, really important to determining the mindset that you adopt as you show up as an applicant in this process, which is going to be deterministic of your overall success and the quality of the offers that you end up accepting. Personal success definition. So what does your definition of success look like for this specific time in your life? A lot of analogs to what I just talked about, but there's a lot of other kind of attributes to kind of think about here, right? Like maybe you're content to make a lateral move in terms of compensation for an increased breadth of responsibility that you think is going to set you up for more senior levels of contribution in the 2 to 3 year time frame. That would be an example of setting a different personal definition of success that's a little bit further out and a little bit more strategic. Timeline, how long do you have to make the change? Some of us have the luxury of really kind of thinking about what our next move is. Maybe you're currently at an employer, you're dissatisfied on a few dimensions, you know it's not a sustainable relationship, but there's nothing forcing you to get a job right now. On the flip side, some of you may have just come off of a layoff, or you may have been out of a job for an extended period of time. And so your timeline feels so much more urgent, right? And so that timeline is going to inform and dictate a lot about the strategies, the tactics, and the mindset that you are coming to the table with throughout this process. And then the here and now. So what was important to you before you took your current role? And then assessing how did those priorities end up working out for you in your current role? Because ostensibly you're looking for a new role because there are aspects about your decision-making process in your current role that might need to be changed or modified for the next role down the line. Honor that, respect that, look at it. Don't shame yourself for it. We all make mistakes in our career, but choose differently the next time around based off of what you know now. And then what's now important to you to consider for your next opportunity. So we talked about that a little. Skylar, anything I missed here? No, good.
No, I don't think so. I was going to say, yeah, a couple of people are in the chatter saying if they're taking notes, we're definitely sending out the recording later. But we are going to take out our pens now because the first exercise is to really go over what are your priorities. So you can either do this on a sheet of paper or just mark it on your notes app if you have a computer out. And I kind of want to make 3 distinct sections of most important, somewhat important, and least important. And the next screen, I'm going to flash a bunch of different priorities. And you can also add to these priorities if you want, but we'll take about 2 to 3 minutes to just sit and say what really is important to me at this time. All right, so here are all the different maybe priorities that you can think of. There's also a lot of other priorities. So if we miss one that's really important to you, make sure that you note it down in your most important, somewhat important, or least important category. So we're going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes to do this. We should have had some fun music or something next time. Scott, you can play one of your guitars, in the background.
That'd be weird for a workshop, but sure. Yeah, I can learn the Jeopardy theme or something.
Yeah.
I think this is great to call attention to in the chat, Skylar, the conversation that you and Kyla are having. So Kyla shared that things feel very urgent because she just graduated from college. Congratulations, by the way, Kyla, huge accomplishment, lots of work. I'm sure you're happy to be out of the academic setting, but now it's time to pay those student loans, right? And so it feels really, really urgent. And yeah, Skylar went to Yale for her MBA. I went to Duke. Neither are cheap programs. So we're with you in heart and in mind for sure. and in our pocketbooks.
Hopefully just giving yourself around 2 to 3 minutes. We hope you can spend more time on thinking about what's really important to you, but if anybody feels comfortable, we can put it into the chat, what is important to you. But this is always good to look at when you're searching for jobs, evaluating jobs, like, is this really going to fit my priorities
right now?
But then we're going to move on to the next one because we have so much more. But yeah, hopefully somebody can put them into the chat. I'd love to talk with you guys there.
Yeah, it would be great if we can get to Q&A. It's always nice to share with each other and support each other as we're all kind of going through this journey together. So really big takeaway here from number 1 is just understanding that priorities and getting that aligned before you put pen to paper, before you submit your first application is really important. Because if you don't start with the end in mind, you don't start with a clear vision of what it is that you want, you're going to apply for the wrong things. You're going to get neck deep into the interview process, and you're going to feel obligated to evaluate it as a potential opportunity, but it might be a really bad fit for you. And when you make those compromises, they can be multiple year-long compromises, and that has much more of an impact than on your bank account. It can impact your emotional state, your relational state, and make everything harder. So look, it's okay if your priorities look different from your friends. Absolutely. Respect the diversity of that. Our lives and our paths are different. And I think like a lot of times we're kind of like socially trained to pass judgment on people who index on some things harder than we do. And that's so silly because we are all individuals. Our lifestyles and our priorities are different. And we just need to have the grace to tell ourselves it's okay if like we're indexing on things differently from our friends, and not pass judgment on others if they are thinking about their path differently from you. It's okay if your priorities look different than a really successful person on Instagram. I think that's just good life lesson. Like, people's Instagram selves are not their real selves. Never compare yourself to them, and like try to resist comparing yourself to anyone if you can. It's okay if your priorities look different from your priorities 5 years ago. This is where people like really flog themselves, right? Like they grow and develop in different ways, or maybe like life takes them down different paths and feel guilty that like they don't look the same as a person as they did 5 years ago. And that's the whole point of life, is that 5 years from now, things will have changed. We will have grown. We will have developed. We will have different priorities and opportunities, right? So don't cement yourself into an identity that is no longer representative of who you are or what you need. And it's okay to change your priorities next year. It's totally all right. Careers are a fluid thing. All right, hidden trap number 2. You're running away from something, not running towards something. This is something I ask myself every time I'm evaluating a new opportunity or a new thing to do. Am I running away or am I running towards? So really, this is about fear versus faith. This is about scarcity versus abundance, right? A trusted advisor once told me fear and faith are both making predictions about the future. One of them's a negative mindset. One of them's a positive mindset, right? So what does this mean? You can want to leave a company based off of faith or based off of fear. So what does a fear-based response looks like? A fear-based response is like, oh man, I don't think my boss likes me. Like, there's a big change coming, and it seems like it's going to be a really big pain in the butt, and I'm going to have to really relearn how I do a bunch of things. And oh man, there's this one person on my team that I just do not get along with. I really, really hate them. And like, rather than just dealing with any of those things, I'm just applying for a new position, right? Those could all be real reasons, by the way, for like wanting to explore something new. I'm not saying that those aren't real reasons, but it's all about the context and the stories that you tell yourself. So a faith-based or an abundance-based reason with all of those same things being true, to pursue a new career might be something like, look, I've realized that my working relationships with my colleagues are really important. And I think that there's a fundamental culture miscalibration here. Like, I think that the talent that this organization brings in and the talent that this organization rewards is not really compatible or conducive to a collaborative working environment. And because of that, I am going to seek opportunities that are more selective about their talent pool, because I want to be surrounded by people who are going to push me to be better. You see, I have like the same reasons to look for a new job, but a different wrapper, and I think like we need to be conscious about, like, are we acting out of fear? Are we acting out of faith? Are we acting out of scarcity? Are we acting out of abundance? Are we running away from something that we don't want to deal with? Or are we running towards something that is going to push us to new levels of growth, right? And it might seem subtle, but the reason that it matters is because if you are operating from a fear-based place, that's going to show up. It's going to show up in the jobs that you decide to apply to. You're going to undervalue yourself if you're operating out of fear. You're going to act with the mindset of scarcity and say yes to things that you know deep down aren't a good fit. You're not going to negotiate your salary or compensation with as much aggression as you probably should and that you probably deserve to, because you are acting out of fear. Like, you're so desperate to escape your current situation that you're not willing to take the risk of taking a bet on yourself, right? And so this is what we're talking about, where mindset is central to your ability to land a career that you love. You could probably get a job without doing the mindset work, but will you find a career that you love? Probably not. All right. That's all I have to say. Skylar, did you have more to say there? Okay. Cool. All right. Hidden trap number 3, not writing a personal purpose statement and definition of success. So this, again, is about mindset and clarity. I love this quote from Chadwick Boseman. Have you all seen this? I'll read it to you. When you're deciding on next steps, next jobs, next careers, further education, you should rather find purpose than a job or a career. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It is the reason that you are on the planet at this particular time in history, right? Regardless of what y'all believe, like from a faith-based perspective, it's just a helpful construct to believe that we are all unique, that we are all built with certain gifts and talents. And if you believe those two things, then it's not a very far jump to believe that we all have a purpose, that we were all born into this place at this time with these skills to do something particular. And it is our job to honor that. And by doing so, things will feel harmonious and resonant, maybe not always easy, but worth the effort in our life if we're tuned into our purpose. And where things feel hard and where things feel crappy and where things feel stressful is when we are misaligned with our purpose and we cannot see the impact of the things that it is that we are doing because we chose out of scarcity or fear to put ourselves in a situation that maybe met our financial needs, but not our purpose-driven needs, right? So this is me giving you permission to be ruthless about choosing things or only choosing things that you feel confident resonate with your purpose. And Chadwick Boseman says so too. So, Wakanda forever. Next slide.
And I think here too, there's a difference between purpose and passion, which we'll get into in this next hidden trap. But purpose is bigger than just what you're passionate about now. And creating these purpose statements can feel a little cheesy or weird, but I hope that, you can take a little bit of time and say, like, what really is the purpose for me throughout my entire life that I want to achieve. But going into this next one, aligning your not aligning your goals.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is my favorite. Skylar, keep me on time because I could do an hour lecture
Yeah,
just on this one. All right. Not aligning your strengths to your career goals. So this is hidden trap number 4. I think a lot of times, like, people get not overwhelmed, but they index on what it is that they can do, not what it is that they should do or they're uniquely equipped to do. So here's kind of like a founding belief in my life that I will now try to convince you of. We are not all equally able. We all have different skills and talents that come easier to us comparatively than the person next to us. And that is a good thing. It's part of the reason why I believe that we all have a purpose, right? Because I believe that we all have different skills and different talents, and those have been bestowed upon us or cultivated in us based off of our background and our experiences. And by the time we get to the workplace, we all have different things where we're naturally just kind of like top single digit percent, and it comes effortlessly and easy to us. And yet there are other things that we can do with enough time and effort. But over-investing in those things would be a non-strategic use of our finite resources of time and energy, right? And so understanding your strengths, what are the things that you uniquely are equipped to do, and in what context, is the key to your success in your career. Like, I tell a story about Michael Phelps. You guys know Michael Phelps. He's like, I think he still is the most decorated Olympian athlete in swimming, like ever. I think he has the most medals, or he did a few years ago. Michael Phelps is like a tall guy, lean guy, athletic guy. He could probably play whatever sport he chose to play, right? But swimming, if he doesn't find swimming, he doesn't become the all-time winningest Olympic athlete that he is. He might be a mediocre basketball player. You know, he might have a modicum of success there, right? But he had to find the application of his strengths that was the most aligned with just massive amounts of success. And I think that that's true for all of us. We all have skill sets that can be put into practice in a variety of industries, in a variety of roles, in a variety of seniorities, in a variety of countries, right? In a variety of product lines. But our job is to find the fit that maximizes our ability to lean into our strengths versus mitigating our weaknesses and using all of our time and life force to trying to correct things that we're bad at versus just lean into things that we are good at. And so when you think about your career, it really exists at this sweet spot intersection of what it is that you love, what it is that you're good at, and where's the opportunity. Like, what is it that the market will pay for? And like, we do a lot of work with our private clients using assessments and coaching sessions to really kind of get to clarity on this. Go ahead, Skylar.
Yeah, which is exactly the exercise we're going to do right now. But I also wanted to comment that there might be things that are outside of what you decide to do for your career. So like, I think I alluded to this, not everything that you're passionate about has to be put into your career. Not everything that you're good at needs to be put into your career. There can be things outside of it, but there should be an alignment between those two. So with this exercise, we're going to, one, list down just 10 things that you love to do. This does not have to relate to anything you have to do with work. The second list is 5 professional strengths. I've listed here the Gallup Strengths Finder list of strengths that we do take the personal clients through. But you can list any other professional strengths that you think that you have. So we're going to give you another like 3-4 minutes to just list down different things that you love to do and professional strengths. And then we're going to come back in a couple of minutes. And so that, yes, this is a little bit ripped off of the Agape, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. The framework that really is around like a life purpose. So if you do want to work on your purpose statement a little bit more, you can look at that framework because that's larger than just professional and like career help. So we kind of adapted it to just focus on people who are going through the job search and career switching mode. But that is a great, diagram and framework to go after your life purpose statement as well. Mhm.
Great engagement on the comments, you guys. I always love it when you get a group of strangers together that are willing to be vulnerable and share.
And actually, while they're working, Scott, did you want to share kind of like what your strengths are from this list? Because we've done the strengths finder.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, and Skylar mentioned it, with our private coaching clients, we coach with executives and also just individuals who are really looking to step into their purpose in life. We use an assessment called Clifton Strengths, which is made by a company called Gallup. You all have probably heard of Gallup in one way or another. They do the presidential polls around election time, but they also have a management consulting arm that does products like this. And the whole Gallup assessment is really, it asks you a series of questions and it boils down, here are your top 5 strengths. And this is the menu of strengths that you can choose from. And then it kind of tells you like, what are the implications in terms of the ways that you work with other people and the ways that you engage with the work that you do. So the strengths that I have are, so I've taken this with every new job that I've had. And what's really interesting is about 3 of the strengths never move. They are always the same strengths, and about 2 strengths flex in and out of my top 5 strengths, depending on what the job or the task in front of me is requiring me to do. So this latest time that I took it was as I was stepping out of a career in corporate America and into a career as an entrepreneur and founder for Unity and Company. So my 3 strengths that never move are strategic, achiever, and relator. So strategic, the ability to take like really complex concepts, disseminate them into something small and more manageable, and then chart a path to achieve those things. Achiever is the drive that I have to maximize the value from everything that I do and to achieve a level of mastery for everything that I do. Relator is how I focus on relationships and proximity to people. Like I'd much rather do work one-on-one than one-to-many, which is ironic because I'm talking to y'all here, but like I do prefer deeper relationships to broader relationships. And then individualization was another one of my top 5, is the ability to basically develop ways of moving forward that are customized to what I know about the individual. So this works in hand with my relator skill, which is to get to know people deeply, but then to leverage that knowledge strategically to really figure out like what is the best and most productive way of moving forward with that person. I forgot my last one this time around. Learner. And I think that learner, because that's one that you and I share, right, Skylar? I think learner popped up for me this time because while I'm very experienced as an executive within a corporate setting, starting my own business is something new. And so I think there's a part of me that was oriented to the fact that I was going to have a lot to learn in this new seat. And so you can see how just having that level of understanding about your strengths can really help you to chart paths forward. Like the fact that I'm strategic, that I'm an achiever, and that I'm a relator means that I should invest in doing things like this to connect with people and grow my business, because it revolves relationship. It revolves creating individualized plans for success for people, right? And it takes advantage of my strategic thinking, is as a way of basically developing a product that people will be interested in. So think about what are the analogs for you all, like when you think about your strengths. And so for this exercise, we're just having you self-assess your strengths. If you are interested in taking it a step further, you can do this on your own. You go to Gallup's website, they sell the StrengthsFinder assessment for $20, I think it is, at an individual level. And you can get a really detailed readout of your specific top 5. That's a lot more analytical and scientific than what we've done here. This is just to give you a taste.
Okay. Yeah, and if you, in the chat you want to share any of your loves or professional strengths. One thing I love to do is watch reality television, but I probably don't think that's going to be into my career, so that's okay for me. But listing kind of the things that you love to do and your professional strengths, then you can kind of look at opportunities in a little different way that you've done before. So, all right. Next.
Love that.
Trap number 5.
Ooh, okay. So now we're, I think in the last piece, we actually moved from mindset to strategy. This is continuing along that strategic theme. So hidden trap number 5, applying without a company analysis. I think a lot of times, like I'm guilty of this, like we find a job with a job description that sounds like something we can do. And we go, oh, I've heard of that company, sounds reputable. Or if we haven't, we do a quick Google search and get a one-liner on what it is they do. And that's the diligence that we end up doing on the company. And then like, you know, you find yourself neck deep in the interview process and having to make a decision later on, but you've never really like revisited the diligence that you had to do. And so there's a lot that could catch you by surprise when you actually find yourself in role. So a big piece of strategy here is to do a company analysis before you ever submit an application to anything. So things that you can evaluate companies on, obviously the industry, like do you have an interest in the industry? Or does it just seem opportunistic? I've had a lot of friends who they apply to roles that they know they can do, they know they can be competitive at, the comp looks amazing, but the industry and the product that that company sells just bores the living snot out of them, right? And it's really hard for them to connect with the product. And if you can't connect with the product, you can't connect with the mission. If you can't connect with the mission, you're not fulfilling that sense of purpose in yourself, right? And so it all kind of disintegrates from there. Location, right? Like, are they going to require you to be in the office? If they are going to require you to be in the office, where is that office, right? You know, in terms of cities, states, countries, or even like specific locations within that locale, depending on your priorities, location can be a huge determining factor that either makes you excited to go visit the office or makes you dread it, you know, and that can wear on you over time. Alignment to to their mission, product, or service. We talked about that already. In-person, hybrid, or remote. There are some people who are making career-based decisions primarily on this criteria alone. And depending on your situation, that might be a completely appropriate prioritization model, right? So be honest with yourself, right? Don't settle for hybrid if your life circumstances require remote. Just look for remote, right? Because you're going to hate it every time you have to drag yourself into the office, you know, in order to meet those kind of like hybrid expectations. On the flip side, if you require relationship in order to feel connected to the work you're doing and the team you're on, don't do just remote. Like maybe a hybrid environment is actually optimal for you. So you get time to like focus and flow on your own deliverables and you have time to make those connections. Life stage. This is one where a lot of people don't do a lot of thinking, but there are huge differences between companies that are in the startup stage or if they're fully scaled. You know what I'm saying? So there's the speed and velocity of new initiatives, the number of hours expected on any given week, the likelihood of turnover and layoffs, like all of these things are different depending on the stage of maturity of the company that you're looking at. Benefits and coverage, like that's another one where I wish that we here in America just had a much better competence of leading with benefits information. But for some of you, depending on where you're at in your life and what your personal needs are, benefits are a huge part of the calculus. And you want to get that out of the way like as early as possible in the process, because for some people, it's even more important than base compensation. And so if that's you, you need to have a strategy and a plan with regards to what companies you apply to and where they fall on the spectrum of generosity here from a benefits and coverage perspective. Their values, not only what their values are, what they say they are, but how do they actually show up in application, right? A lot of people go through the entire interview process never asking a single question about values and culture. And yet it's one of the most deterministic factors on whether or not you're going to make it, whether or not you hate your life on a daily basis, is whether or not these cultural values show up the way that they say they will. Reputation of the employer, you can save yourself a lot of grief by using review aggregator sites and really kind of trying to get an understanding of what the culture looks like from the perspective of people who work there. Management style of your direct manager. Like, managers are the number one reason why people leave companies. Why aren't they the number one reason that people make a decision to join a company or not? Because regardless of who you are, like my last position in the corporate setting was as a VP of operations in line to take over for the COO. That was that was where I was situated. But even still, I needed mentorship. I needed development. I needed things from my direct manager that in the end, he wasn't equipped to give me, which is why I started my own company. But what I'm saying is the need for mentorship and development, the need for things from your direct manager does not dissipate no matter how high up the organization you go. So factor it in to your job search criteria. Team and department structure. This is just important to know so that you can assess mobility options, you can assess who you're working with on a daily basis, and what kind of opportunities are likely to land on your desk. Performance and promotion policies. A lot of companies haven't even really thought of this. It's kind of nice to know that going in versus to accept a role that you think has great initial base comp, but then there's no path to increase that over the next few years that you end up spending at the company. So sometimes worth it just to ask this question point blank once you get further along in the process. Equal pay data and reputation. Another thing that varies based off of like life stage, maturity of the company and their own individual values, but might be disproportionately important to you based off of your own priorities. Oh, you want to talk about this pro tip, Skylar?
Yes, I can talk about it. I was also going to share kind of a personal failure on my part on some of these. So in my last role, I took a job at a company that the industry was just like not right for me. Like I knew it wasn't right for me. It was actually an alcohol and like I barely drink. And so I was like, why is this even interesting to me at all? But I took it because kind of more of those like fear-based approaches. I also learned that the way that they deliver goals and their OKR process was completely top down. And that really doesn't align with like my individual want to create impact in the company. So I was never going to be able to set my own goals. And I knew those two things coming in and I still took the job, even though like I knew that. So just sharing like that kind of personal failure. And in the job, I was very unhappy because of those two things. And I should have taken the time to really assess these are my priorities and like this job isn't going to work for me because of these aspects. Yeah.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
Can I jump in there, Skylar? Because so you're referring to the job that you got straight out of business school, right? And you went to a top tier business school and the employer that you ended up saying yes to was one of those keystone employers, right? Like when you go to business school, they do all of these featured cases on employers of choice, right? And so you kind of feel like if you're in the running to get a position at a company like that. Like you have to, like you should, right? It's like I went to this great business school and these employers only hire from these great business schools and they want me. And so I feel like I'm obligated to go do this stuff, even if it grates against like my personal values and priorities. And I think that like, as I reflect back on my own career, the positions that I took where I was the most unhappy are the positions that I took because there was some nameless figure telling me that I should be at this point in my career, or I should take a position that looked this way or paid this much or was titled this much. And it was a really kind of flimsy reason, but it almost felt like an expectation, right? So be very clear about whose voice you're listening to. Are you listening to your voice, or are you listening to this invisible person who's shooting all over you?
Yeah, thank you. And the pro tip is just, I think a lot of companies right now are moving towards a trend of not using the job boards as much. So during this company analysis, if you are like, oh, I really want to go to this company, but I'm not seeing them on Indeed.com or LinkedIn, like just go to their website and check out their job postings actually there, because many of them are not listed on the larger job posting sites. But all right, tip number 6.
All right. Hidden trap number 6, messing with the anatomy of a resume. I love this. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So I'll give you guys a little bit of history about me. So my last 3 positions in corporate America were leading operations and HR teams for staffing marketplace companies. And all that means is that I led large recruiting teams that processed thousands of resumes and applications a month. And so I have a little bit of experience here in resume and application review. And so sitting from the side of the desk that myself and my team were sitting on, I have a very visceral reaction to which of these resumes is better, right? And most people would say, man, look at the one on the right. Like, it's so colorful, it's really punchy, it's clean, like things are in these segments. You see his picture, that is great. It's like lowercase letters. It's very like non-adversarial, has a good feel. It looks almost like a product designy kind of like resume, right? And the left one looks so boring. The left one is almost a carbon copy of what the Career Services Center at my business school told me to do as I was looking for jobs post business school graduation. And it hasn't changed. I graduated business school over a decade ago. And so it hasn't changed since then. And it hadn't changed up until then for decades either. It's boring, it's old, it's stale. But guess what? It still works. It is still the best way to format a resume. So standard resume formats are enough and even better than these pretty one-pager resumes. Why is that? So I think we have another slide on that. Because when you're writing a resume, you're not writing a resume for one audience. You're writing a resume for 3 audiences. There's the ATS, or the applicant tracking system. There's the recruiter, who knows just enough about the job to know who they should pass through and who they should paper sort. And then there's the hiring manager. And the thing about the pretty resume is they assume that the first step of the process is that your resume is going to be looked at by a human. That's just not the way it works for most jobs. The first person to look at your resume is the applicant tracking system. And a lot of times, especially if you're at a company that's really popular or a company that's really large, they utilize keyword search filters, which use, at the worst case scenario, a dummy like keyword based, it's not even an algorithm, a keyword based logic to only select for certain keywords and only pass through people who have certain keywords on their resume. In the best case scenario, there's some kind of AI that interprets, and like the ATS automatically develops synonyms for stuff. But even that's pretty hit or miss. And so a lot of people get filtered at the ATS stage and they don't even know it. And it's because they haven't tailored their resume to be keyword optimized for that specific job at that specific company for for basically a search engine application, right? But in addition to writing, you can't just write for a search engine, you can't just keyword stuff your resume. You also have to write for a recruiter. And what a recruiter is doing is they're looking for a couple of very deterministic factors before they pass through to the hiring manager. And they spend less than a minute on every resume. They have to, because there are too many to look at. So what they're really concerned with is they want to quickly find information like your title, your accomplishments, and your education. And your title, by the way, better be pretty close descriptively to the title that you are applying for, or the title structure that they have within their organization. So what that means is sometimes you got to be creative about how it is that you position your role so that it's a directly comparable apples to apples comparison for the recruiter, who, remember, like, a recruiter is typically somebody that is, an individual contributor within an organization who gets a 1-hour briefing, if that, from the hiring manager, where they get educated on the requirements for the role. And then they are in charge of determining the first pass of most attractive candidates based off of less than an hour worth of training. So you got to make it as easy as possible for that recruiter to look at your resume and look at the job description and say, these are both apples. I'm going to pass this through, right? Hiring manager. And so the hiring manager knows about the job. They know the most about what it is they want from the person in that job. That is the people that, like, most people are writing their resumes for, but they are the last people to get their hands on the resume. And so you have to take that into consideration while crafting your resume. Your resume is probably the number one piece of leverage that you can spend time on that will open up your career prospects, like through the interview process. You spend time on a resume, then a lot of opportunities will come your way. But unfortunately, most people develop one master resume and then they just use that for everything. And they get paper sorted at the front end. Hidden trap number 7, submitting and praying. I think we've all been here too. I remember early in my career, I started a spreadsheet and I had applied to like 200 jobs before I found 2 that called me back. But I was making a lot of the classic mistakes that we had already talked about early in this presentation. And so no wonder I wasn't getting callbacks. So you don't just want to make a submission. You want to submit, you want to customize your resume for those 3 audiences and for the specific job description. And then once you submit it, don't just wait for the phone to ring. Don't just wait for an email to come through. Like, LinkedIn makes it really easy to leverage recruiters for some postings. Like, they give you the option to list the recruiter in charge of that particular job requisition. And what you can do is you can easily pay LinkedIn, like, it's worth a little bit of an investment to get some in-mails, which allow you to send emails directly to recruiters or other people within the organization. And those in-mails will also kind of ping the people until they open it or reject the in-mail. So it kind of automates your follow-up for you. And in your in-mail, you're able to create a custom crafted letter showcasing more about yourself and why you're a good fit for the role than your resume will. Your resume, people will spend 30 seconds on, and the answer might be in there, but it's not written in narrative format and it's not necessarily easy to see. So using an in-mail gives you another chance to sell yourself in a punchier, tighter kind of way. And the first thing is leveraging recruiters. For level 2, you can reference through connections, right? So if you have a connection, a friend, an acquaintance, a colleague who works at a company that you want to work at, even if it's not in the same department, reaching out to them and asking, hey, do you know the lead recruiter for this? Or do you know the hiring manager for this? It would be great if you could just have them get eyes on my resume. Like, if I gave you a PDF, would you hand deliver it for me? You'll be surprised how many people in your network are willing to say yes. It's a really easy thing to do. But what it does is it guarantees that you get past that first step, which is the ATS, that you're not paper sorted and that you get a fair shot. And there are so many people that I have coached through career transformation that have done this step and gotten in the room. And once they were in the room, they sold themselves because they were very highly qualified for the position, but they would have never gotten in the room. They didn't take this step. Level 3 is leverage a second degree connection. So ask for a reference, right? So if you don't have a friend at XYZ organization, but that friend has a friend at XYZ organization, ask for an introduction to that person. And then level 4 is proactive. So this is for people who have a little bit longer of a time horizon and have a narrow set of target employers that they want to go to. If that's you, then what you can do is you can take time, use those in-mails, and just have coffee with people who are in the role that you want to be in or around the role that you want to be in. And just no pressure, no agenda. I just like, hey, I'd love to have a job at this company someday. I want to know what it's really like to work here. So if you can spare the time, I'd love to buy you a coffee, virtual coffee, whatever, and go for that. And you'll be surprised. Like, I actually worked with a woman who did this for about a year before taking a job for me. And she was like networking at various places throughout the organization and already like had allies and advocates like at the organization because of the fact that she took the time to plant those seeds. All right. Last hidden trap. Productivity is not submitting, like how many applications you can submit. All right. I want to encourage you guys to take a much more holistic approach to how you define productivity. Don't kill yourself day in and day out. I know it's easy to do, especially if you currently don't have a job and you're seeking with high urgency. It is much, much better to do fewer applications and prioritize these things and do higher quality, more customized applications that are aligned with your purpose and your values than it is for you to just spray and pray and apply to like every job on the face of the planet. Like, this will result in less stress, in more balance, in greater self-esteem. All of those things will positively impact your ability to land a job. So this is just us giving you permission to give yourself the grace to be a whole person and to use your time intelligently and not wastefully. All right, next slide. All right, so that's the end of the prepared content. I won't spend too much time on this, but if you are in the middle of a career transformation and you want assistance and guidance and, trusted advisors to help you through the process, Skylar and I do this for a living. We've done this through our careers. We do this now as we've started our business. We have a lot of private coaching clients who have helped us to do this. Where we've done a lot of work is people who are specializing in career transitions. Maybe they have deep technical expertise as like an educator or in the healthcare system, but they have a passion and desire to take their transferable skills and do more in a different context. And we've used this mindset strategy and tactics technique to help them to make those transitions successfully. But all of those are applicable to any job that you might be going for. So our quick start package is really, we talked about how the resume is the most predictive indicator of like your success in the job interview process. Quick start package is built around just that. We have 2 intensive sessions to help you craft your resume. One where we'll go down line by line through your existing resume, give you suggestions for improvement, and then a second one where we will evaluate the improvements that you've made. And then once you've got a great resume, you will start getting calls for interviews, and we want to make ourselves available for whatever prep you need. If you need us to role play with you, if you need us to strategize with you, determine questions to ask, there are 4 included prep sessions in that particular package. The strategic search package takes it a step further. So this is for people who have a little bit more time to invest in a little bit more coaching and self-development, but this includes the strategy pieces. So knowing your strengths, company analysis, and that piece, as well as the tactics, which is doing your resume and custom crafting your applications. And we will help you craft a resume that you will be proud to go into the interview process with. The final package is the transformation package. This is the Cadillac of everything. So you get the resume package. We'll work on strategy and tactics, but we'll also spend time on mindset. And that mindset piece is so important. You can do it on your own. Please do it on your own if you can. But if you want to do it all in a single package to find your next career, this is the package we really recommend for you. And we're offering it at a deep discount just because Skylar and I have so much just connection, and we get so much enjoyment out of helping people find careers where they feel like different people, because everything is just clicking. And we're confident that that last package is the thing that will bring that to life more than anything else. And so we offer it as kind of our Cadillac offering. So y'all might need time to think about it. This isn't a hard sales pitch. If this was helpful for you, enjoy the free content. There's no obligations. But if you do want to work with us, or you want to just chat with us or have us in your network, here's how you can get a hold of us. Our website is unityandcompany.com. My email address is real easy, scott@unityandcompany.com. Skylar's is similar. And then if you want to listen to something on your commute to your new job, the Workplace Therapy Podcast is a great place to start. And that is it. Y'all get recordings after this session, as Skylar mentioned earlier, so don't worry about that. And I know we're over time, but like if you guys have any like questions or concerns and you have a few minutes to hang out, happy to spend a couple extra minutes with you.